Blog Talk Radio.
The year, 1888. The place, London's East End. Dead and mutilated bodies are popping up all over, from Stamford to Whitechapel. Jack the Ripper is leaving his mark, and the city's on edge. Yvonne Mason is back with a tale of murder and millinery. The Rhodes Hat Factory is booming while the body count rises. Why now? How are these hats connected? Has the Hatter gone mad? Mad Hatter from Yvonne Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason. And yes, people, that was, once again, a piece of shameless promotion. That is my book, The Mad Hatter, and my voice man is Chris Dunham. I could not do without him because he really knows how to bring my books to life in 30 seconds or less. So if you need a voiceover man, contact him. He's on my Facebook page. Things have been happening like crazy. My head spins with everything that's going on in the world that I live in at the moment, and I'm taking a whole lot of people with me on this crazy tornado ride. Our show is just, it's taken on its own life form. We're over 10,000 listeners. We're heard in Hungary and Norway and Bulgaria and Malaysia and Vietnam and Ukraine and Finland and Sweden and Korea, Ecuador and Tunisia, Russian Federation, Singapore, good old USA, Ireland, Germany, Egypt, the UK, Australia, and I have to give a shout-out to my guys from Down Under because they are 67% of my listening audience just on Blog Talk. The U.S. is like 1 to their 2, so if you know people in the U.S., they need to listen. We're heard in Indonesia and Canada and Croatia, New Zealand, Brazil, South Africa, India, Portugal, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Taiwan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, why would you not want to be on this show with the exposure that we are getting? This is free, worldwide exposure for anyone who has a platform or a book or music or a job or a business or painting, or you just want to talk politics or life in general. This is your free platform. So contact me because you never know where we're going to be heard next. I had a friend of mine the other day said, "What, you're not heard in Mexico?" I said, "No, darling, you need to contact your people in Mexico and tell them to listen in so that they can get a shout-out because we appreciate every one of our guests and our listeners. Without them, we would have no show. I would be talking to myself, which I do occasionally, especially when the voices won't shut up. Tonight, I have this wonderful, wonderful young man on my show who is an author, a filmmaker, a voiceover artist, you name it. He's probably done it. And he's led a very interesting life, and I can't wait to delve into it. His name is Alexander Beresford. I see I probably massacred it again. But he grew up in Los Angeles, and he's part of the time in Maryland and Dallas. Now he lives in South Florida, and I'm going to find out how far south, because, see, I live in South Florida, too. And he occasionally runs over to a haunted cottage in Derbyshire, England. And there he communicates with the ghost, and he drinks rum and writes. See, I already love the man. He has a ghost in his life, and he drinks rum and he writes. All of my favorite things to do. He's a National Writers Association Short Fiction Award winner, a member of the Horror Writers Association. He studied creative writing at FIU with creative writing director-author Les Standiford. And Alexander has also written plays, screenplays, short stories, and novellas. And welcome to this show, Alexander. I am so glad you're here. And again, I apologize for massacring your name.
No, that was fine. And thank you very much for having me here tonight. I really appreciate it. I've been looking forward to being on the show since we scheduled it, I think, late last year, right? That's when we scheduled it.
Yeah, the shows are, I'm already almost to the end of June. Well, I'm at the end of June and going into July with the schedules for the shows. Some are even already into August. So, yeah, this show
it's fantastic.
Crazy. And it's all because of you guys.
No, it's fantastic.
Tonight, we have so much to talk about, so you're definitely coming back. That's a given. But you grew up in Los Angeles, and you part of the time Maryland, Dallas, South Florida. Where in South Florida? I have to ask you that first. Where in South Florida?
I'm in Miami, Florida.
Do you know you're exactly 2 hours south of me?
Oh, really? Okay, so you're up in West Palm or something?
North of West Palm.
Jupiter?
I'm in Port St. Lucie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So
fantastic.
You could even come to the house and do a show, because I have a whole studio set up.
Oh, maybe I'll do that when I come back. I would love to do that. That'd be great. It's a nice trip up there.
Fun. That would be a hoot and a half. See, ladies and gentlemen, how things work out. Now, tell me a little bit about Alexander. How did you get to this part of your journey? You say you had. I read where you had exceptional parents, and there was a beautiful little ghost boy that you played with as a child. Just start and tell me all of it.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was a kid, my dad's retired, but he was an international banker. So we kind of moved around a little bit. My parents wanted to keep us here in the States. We did travel around the world. We spent a few months in Mexico. We've been to Brazil, but in our developing years, because I have two younger brothers, my parents kind of wanted to keep us, around. So I grew up in L.A., and we lived also in Maryland. And then halfway through high school, we moved to Dallas, and then I went overseas for a while, for a couple of years, and then came back to Dallas, and then my parents were here in Miami. So I thought, well, let me go down to Miami, and then I kind of got anchored down here. I do go to L.A. as often as I can, because I still have good friends there, and being a little bit involved independently in the film business, and also with some of the I used to work in radio, so I do a lot of voiceover work, and so I do like to go to L.A. as often as I can. But I've always been interested. I had grandparents on my mother's side. They were artists. They were painters, and so I kind of grew up with artists, around me. And my parents on my father's side, they were business owners and people like that, but very supportive. My aunt, for instance, my father's sister was very supportive of me, and I was always into the arts. I was always I'm a musician. I've always been interested in writing, in acting. I went to school. I studied theater. I studied creative writing, and I've always been interested in that kind of stuff. And it was at some point in high school that I decided to. I was writing plays because I was involved in theater, heavily involved in theater in high school. So I was involved. I wanted to write some plays, and so I started writing plays. I started writing poetry, and I wrote my first short story while I was in high school, which is a story about love versus hate. And these were two boxers in a ring, and they were fighting each other. So that was basically the first short story. And I showed it to some people, and of course people are nice, when you're young at that age. And but I was just inspired to continue writing, and for a very long time. And I wrote screenplays. I wrote some plays before I actually wrote a novel, and I had written some short stories as well. But I kind of struggled with what to write, because when I was writing theater, it seemed like I would write some kind, certain types of themes, more emotional stuff, more relationship stuff, between, just any kind of relationship, not just love relationships. When I wrote screenplays, I tended to write, more science fiction, more action type stuff. And I kind of struggled with what to write in prose. I wanted to write a novel. I just didn't know what to write. And for a while, I wrote a couple of novellas, and I wrote things like that. But they were more contemporary literature, contemporary fiction, that kind of writing. And I just wanted to really write something meaningful. I was just stuck with that idea that I wanted to write something that was gonna last and that was meaningful. And I was putting all this pressure on myself in writing, a novel. And then after many, many years of struggling with that and writing short stories, and like I said, continued to write screenplays and write plays, whatever, I don't know, the light bulb just went on, and I'm a big fan of Stephen King and Clive Barker, especially Clive Barker, because I think I remember when I read the Hellbound Heart, which is Clive Barker's novella, and I was just so impressed by the beauty of the writing. There were some passages in that novella that really hit me, and I was like, wow, man, here's this guy writing horror, and yet it's so beautifully written. And of course, Stephen King's a lot of fun to read. The Stand, is my favorite Stephen King novel, because I read The Stand when I was still young, and it really impacted me. It's all the different characters and how people can be so nasty to each other. I mean, it kind of opened my eyes to some things when I read The Stand. So that was a book that really impacted me. Of course, The Hellbound Heart as well, and a few other novels. But it just dawned on me. I thought, I'm just going to try to write something fun. So I wanted to write something that, I would enjoy writing, forget all that pressure about having to write something that is important or something that is going to last, all that pressure I was putting on myself. I just thought, I'm just going to get these characters that are already in my mind, the characters I had played around with for years, whatever. And I said, I'm just going to do this, and that's kind of how I got into writing horror. And specifically Charla, which is published with Black Bed Sheep Books and Nick Grabowski. And I have a lot of respect for Nick. We've been to a couple of conventions together early, when the book was published. And, Nick works really hard for writers. Of course, being a writer himself, he has a tremendous respect for writers, and I think he's a writer's publisher. I have a lot of respect for him and for his hard work and for the amount of personal time he puts into Black Bed Sheep Books. And I was incredibly happy to have submitted to him and have him publish Charla. So, it's been an interesting journey with that book. I owe Nick a new novel. I've been kind of a bit of a hermit the past couple of years. I've had some family issues and things like that to deal with, kind of kept me out of the light a little bit. I've kind of been in my cave, very private and everything. So, and it kind of got in the way of my writing. It kind of took a little bit of that creativity away and the fun of writing away from me. And I have a short story collection that I've been working on for a while. So I have a bunch of short stories. I've always continued to write, but I just couldn't finish this other novel. So I owe Nick this novel, and it'll be coming hopefully soon. I'll be sending it to him, but it's been a long time coming, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, so very happy to be published by Black Bed Sheep Books. I really, at this point, wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I think Nick does a great job, and I'm very happy to be published with him. But that's it. I mean, I just decided to not put so much pressure on me about what to write and just write something fun. And I enjoy writing nasty characters. I mean, the novel Charla has a lot of bad people. There's only one person there that, Amelie, which is Charlotte's daughter, that a person reading would say is a decent person. Everybody else is kind of rotten in some way, and I think, somewhat influenced by, like I said early on when I read The Stand, and how many rotten people in there. And then, of course, as you grow older, you realize that that's part of reality. You start bumping into these rotten people. Like you mentioned earlier. Yeah, you mentioned earlier, my parents are fantastic. They've been supportive, very supportive, and, they gave me a great childhood and everything. But when you start going into the real world, and that's when you start, seeing how the world really is. And so I enjoy writing about those characters. And in this new novel that I'll be submitting to Nick soon, or in the next few months, it's the same type of thing. There's only one character there that would be considered a decent person, maybe two. Everybody else is pretty rotten, and I think those rotten characters are fun to write. And in the case of Charlotte, it's a mother that hates her daughter. Just hated her from the moment she was born, and I don't really address it deeply in the book, the reason why she hates her daughter. There's some indication that, of course, there's the postpartum type syndrome that some women experience, where they dislike the baby, but they get over that. And also Charlotte's life, before she got married, and her youth, where she had a lot of problems, and there's just something about this, her daughter having been, born into a well-to-do family, because Charlotte married a man that was well off, and the father, and there's something about that there's a lot of little details in there that people may read into as to why she hates her daughter, but she hates her daughter. So she just wants the worst for her daughter, and of course she can't, because of society and because of the father and because of everybody around. She can't make that obvious. So for a long time she was able to hide these things, and the book basically takes place when Emily is older and still living at home, and Charlotte has to think of creative ways to continue to do harm to her daughter. So there's a few things in the book that she does to her, but one of the things, and I suppose the main thing, is because Charlotte had gotten involved in the occult when she was younger. She had a friend, and they kind of did things with the occult, and Charlotte had some knowledge of that, so she decided to summon a demon into the house.
Oh, wow.
To kind of punish
lovely
the daughter.
Woman.
Now I don't. Yeah. I don't get into in the book. I don't get into very into graphic violence. I like that more psychological aspect of the more psychological part. I don't personally. I just don't get into the very violent kind of writing, or because as soon as I mention a mother bringing a demon into the house to do harm to a young daughter, of course she's of age. She's supposed to be 25 in the book, but people think, oh my God, horrible things come to mind.
Rosemary's
but they're
Baby
all
revisited.
Yeah, well, they're all implied, and it's psychological, and it's. But anyway, I enjoyed the book, and I was really happy that Nick enjoyed it enough to want to publish it, and that's pretty much how I got here.
Well, that would segue into a question, and that question is that why you wanted to be a detective? Because of the innate evilness in the world?
When I was growing up in L.A., we lived for a period of time at the Bunker Hill Towers, which are downtown It's a beautiful building, a very tall building, I think 36 floors or something. And we lived on one of the higher floors. And I remember when my parents used to go out and stuff, they used to get a babysitter to be with me and my two brothers. And our babysitter was she was in the, what do you call it? I keep thinking boot camp, but it's not boot camp. It's the police training. She was training as a police officer. She was in the police academy. That's what it is. And so we used to watch, police TV shows. Like I watched Starsky and Hutch or, Adam 12, stuff like that. And she would watch these shows with us. And, of course, being in the police academy, she would talk to us about that. And it just fascinated me. I found the whole thing very interesting. And I was a little kid, so it kind of made an impression on me. And then as I grew older, I thought, I like that idea. It's kind of like being a real life superhero in a way, because you're there fighting crime, you're helping people. And I just sort of had this fantasy sort of being a police officer and eventually being a detective of some kind. Now, I did at some point in my while I was, around college time or after college, I did find an opportunity because I did ride like with police department, before as a young person. Sometimes you can ride with police officers during their schedules and stuff. So I did some of that. I was always kind of interested and just dabbled into and toyed with the idea of going to police academy and training and becoming a police officer. But I was also very pulled by the art, and music and everything else. So I did at one point, and this is the shift. This is what changed my mind. I became a private investigator and a trainee, basically, a private investigator trainee. And I worked not full-time, of course, because, I was going to school, I was doing different things. But, I trained. I had my little trainer's license and all this other stuff. I had a gun license, the whole thing. And I started working for corporations because the agency that I worked with, they worked with big department stores. So my job, and of course I didn't work alone. I had other detectives with me, but our job was basically to do surveillance on employees. So sort of an internal, like a loss prevention type thing, but they had hired an outside company to come in. And at some point, I remember we even did we used to do surveillance and investigation on the loss prevention department within, a big department store. So it was, but anyway, so we would every now and then, catch people stealing things or do things of that nature. And let me tell you, at that point, I just didn't quite enjoy that. I didn't enjoy seeing people, because of course some people stole things or did things, or employees did things out of, I don't know, because they had nothing better to do or because they could get away with it or greed. But some people, they had real problems. These people had real problems. They were desperate. They needed money for something, and I'm not condoning that behavior of stealing stuff, but it kind of made an impression on me that wasn't positive as far as doing that kind of work. And another thing is, I had a friend. He was older than me, and that was even here in Miami. I was much older at that point, and he kept trying to encourage me to go into the police department, and he went from being a regular police officer, to working specifically with domestic violence. And I remember him. He used to tell me all the time the horrible things that would occur. The children, and I mean, it was just unbelievable. So these things kind of turned me off to having a career. And also a high school friend of mine became a photographer for the coroners. And this guy would show me these horrendous pictures of bodies and trunks and all this other stuff. So all of the combination of these things kind of turned me off to that. And of course, the pull to art, because as a musician, I used to play in bands. I was writing, I enjoyed theater, all that kind of stuff. The pull for the artistic side of stuff was just stronger, so I decided to go that route. I started in radio when I was 19 years old as well, and the pull to do that kind of work just became more powerful than to become a police officer or a detective. But yeah, early in my life, that was something I was kind of excited about, and I did toy with that idea for many, many years.
Well, and the thing is, what we see, and I too watched Adam 12 and Starsky and Hutch. It was glamorous. It was all on the positive. Sure, they caught the bad guy, but the bad guy was a really, really bad guy. But then when you get out into the real world, desperate people take desperate measures, and being a police officer is not always a positive thing, because just like you say, you see the crime scenes, you see the domestic abuse, you see someone whose child is hungry stealing so they can feed their child, and especially in this day and age when the economy got so bad, it takes a special person to survive that and not come out jaded.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I didn't have the pull for the writing or for the arts in general, I could have done it, because I understand the point. Of course, if you're you're trying to help people. You're trying to help people. So your job. I have incredible respect for military people and for police officers everywhere, and it's a very tough job. I know police officers today. One of my best friends is a Secret Service agent, and it's tough, and he was in the military. He was a police officer, so I've heard tons of stories and stuff. It's something I could have done if I didn't have that artistic pull that just happened to be a little stronger, so I kind of veered that way. And also things started happening for me artistically, so I just kind of went that route. But yeah, it's very tough, and like I said, I've heard so many crazy stories. Even and when I was younger, it just gave me that slight negative impression about the kind of work that it is. Because you're right. I mean, watching Starsky and Hutch was it was fun. It was a good time. And the reality is not quite like that.
Well, I want to go back up. I want to back up just a little bit, because
sure,
this little ghost boy that you played with really grabbed my interest when I was researching you and learning about your background, because I do believe that we are visited. I've had it happen to me, and most adults discount when a child says "Mom," and they say, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm playing with so and so." Most adults discount that, because if they believe their child, then they're as crazy as their child, and they're going to put them both away. But that's not the case. Children see things that adults quit seeing a long time ago.
Yeah.
But tell me about the little ghost boy. That would be a good story for you to write.
Yeah, I've toyed with that idea. That's another thing that I've always been interested in, and I think partially because of this little boy. And I didn't play this little boy many times. It was sort of a hide and seek type thing, but it happened, 3 or 4 times when I was young, and it made a big impression on me, especially the very first time. But I just find that whole thing about ghosts and the whole occult world, really, I just find it interesting, and I've had some experiences, with that, but, and I don't bother, digging too deeply to try to prove or disprove any of this stuff, because the experience I had are the experiences I had, and and I've enjoyed my experiences, and I don't care what people try to prove to me or not. I've had certain experiences. Like, I'll give you a quick example. When my aunt passed away, and I was very close to my aunt, And when she passed away, I wasn't able to be there next to her. So it kind of, whatever. I mean, we knew she was going to pass, whatever. I just wasn't able to be there, but I got a message to her and everything. And she, like I said, she was very close to me. About a couple of weeks after that, I had an incredibly vivid, very real dream where she was in her house and I was there, and she came out of her room and I saw her and we hugged and I exchanged a couple of words with her, but it was incredibly real. I mean, I've had many dreams, obviously in my life, but this one was special. This one was very real. And, I've had a friend or two try to convince me that it's just nonsense. It's, this, it's that. To me, it was my aunt basically saying, coming to me and saying goodbye to me. That's what I choose to believe, And
I agree with you.
And it was a nice experience.
She was telling you it was okay that she was telling you it was okay that you couldn't be there, that she understood, but she wanted you to know that it was okay for you to tell her goodbye.
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience that I had in that dream, and it was incredibly vivid. I could feel her when I hugged her. I could feel her. It was very intense. And when I woke up, I was just, that was it. To me, that was that was her. That was her visiting me. So I don't care what people choose to tell me, whether they believe it or not, or so anyway, I'm open to that kind of stuff, and I enjoy it. And this boy, when I was little, my parents were their friends, pizza. They were having a good time, and I was in my room, and I saw this boy, this kid, kind of run past the door of my bedroom, and I got excited because I thought, oh, cool, this is one of my parents' kids or something that they brought along. I hadn't seen the kid before, so I came out of my room and I was looking for this kid, and then I see a little bit of him again. Kind of turning a corner, kind of just teasing me. So I kind of went after him, and I was playing a little game of hide and seek. It's like, where is this kid, And at some point, I couldn't find him, and I asked my mother. I was like, who's the kid? I'm looking for the little boy. And my mother says, oh, there's, what little boy? I mean, your brother? And I said, no, not my brother. I know my brother is. This is another little boy. And she says, no, there's no other little boy. And at the time, I was too young to kind of understand that kind of stuff. I just kept kind of looking for him. And I, and it happened 3 or 4 other times in the span of, I don't know, maybe 4 years or something. It happened. It didn't happen often at all, but every now and then it would happen. And then, after the second, third time, I started to understand that wasn't something that was real, that was, I don't mean like it was made up in my imagination, because to me, right, it wasn't my imagination. It didn't feel like my imagination. That was something there, it was somebody actually there. And I understood more the concept of a ghost and that kind of stuff. And I was never afraid, I've been never afraid. In fact, other times in my life when I've maybe felt something, I would always sort of invite it, and because I've never been afraid of that kind of stuff. I find it intriguing. I find it interesting. I would love to be able to sit down and have a long conversation, an interview with the ghost, sort of like an interview with the vampire, and Rice's book. I would love to do that, or with an alien.
It would be interesting. Well, because you would learn, like I would like to know more about the little boy. Who was he? Why did he die so young? What happened to him? Who were his parents? And why was he in your house? He apparently related to you on some level.
And never said anything. It was just a playful sort of, there was no heavy energy to it. There was no negativity attached to it. It was just sort of a playful little entity, that kind of moved around, and I always played this hide and seek game with it, and sometimes it lasted longer than others, and it was just fun and exciting to me. Of course, I wanted to find the kid. I wanted to talk to him or whatever, or play other games, but that's all he seemed to be interested in. And I have no idea. I've never seen that child again. I could picture. I still have a picture of that child in my mind, but I've never seen it again. And I'm not an artist, or I would do a drawing. I would like to draw the child that I have in my mind, so that maybe I could find some more information on it. But I don't know, and I've never really researched or really looked into what was going on there. It was just an experience I had that had an impact. Had an impact on me.
Now, I'm switching gears because we always
Sure.
run out of time, and I don't want to run out of time. I would love for you to write a novel about that child, because as we're talking, there's all kinds of visions dancing through my head, and I see this child, and I'm thinking he could have been run over by a car, or he could have had a catastrophic illness. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
And what you could do with this child to bring him to life. But in switching gears, I also found out that you are a blues harmonica player.
Yeah. I mean, that's when I started doing. I've always been into music. My dad. One of the creative things my dad used to do when he was young was he had a drum set. And I remember being very little, and he had a drum set there, and he would play with his friends sometimes. So I don't know. That impacted me as well. That's why I became a musician. I played piano. I played bass, guitar, and I played some guitar. And I've always liked the harmonica because it's easy to carry around with you. And I remember early in high school, just about the time I started driving, my girlfriend, we were living in Dallas at the time. It was about middle high school. I think I was a junior. And my girlfriend in Dallas had horse. She owned a horse. I would drive her to the stables, and she would just take her horse out, and I would sit in the car. And I bought this blues harmonica thing by John Gindick, John Gindick's still around. You can find him on YouTube and stuff, and he teaches you like little harmonica licks and different things like that. The Good Morning Riff, I still remember that stuff. But it was a cassette, so you'd put the cassette in, and he'd be playing guitar, and you could play along with him, and he'd teach you these little licks and stuff. So I started there, and being fairly musical, I enjoy music a lot, and I play music and stuff to this day. Not professionally, I did for a period of time play professionally, but mostly for my own entertainment, really. But I just started playing more and more blues harmonica, and one of the places I've been meaning to go, in fact, I was going to go last year, but I ended up not being able to go, is there's a blues festival here in Florida. I think it's in Daytona, and they do this festival every year, and people go and compete and do all this stuff. So I really enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I think it's fun. The instrument's a little bit limited, but I enjoy playing it. I find it a lot of fun.
There is nothing in the world like listening to someone who can take a harmonica and make it walk and talk, because to me that is one of the most entertaining and inspiring instruments around. Most people can pick up a guitar and after a few lessons can play it fairly well, or a drum, but to take a harmonica and use nothing but the lungs that you have and the air in those lungs to create music, it's amazing to me.
Now, one of the things I found that does that as well is bamboo flutes, which is a more meditative thing. It's a very peaceful, meditative type thing. But I remember many years ago being in an Asian festival, and it was kind of drizzly, and in the distance I heard this bamboo flute. And I was like, wow, man, that just sounds great, and I went looking for it, and it was a guy named George Tortorelli, who was, and he's played for Windham Hill. He has records out there, and he's a bamboo flute player, and he was there in this festival selling flutes, and CDs and stuff, and I was like, man, I got to get one of these. So I got one of his bamboo flutes, and now I have, I don't know, I probably have 40, 50 different bamboo flutes, and I enjoy playing those as well. But that's exactly that thing, you're playing with your own breath. It's a very, it's a very sort of natural instrument, and, especially the bamboo flute. But the harmonica has that same kind of feel to it, and I really enjoy it.
I'm just awe-inspired by someone that can do that. I played clarinet in band, but I wouldn't even dare try to play harmonica because, number one, I don't have that much air, and number two, you have to hear the music in your head and in your soul to be able to bring it to life on a harmonica or even a bamboo flute. You've got to feel that music.
Yeah, when you're playing blues harmonica, it's all improvisational, but it's pretty much all improvisational, which is great. But like I said, the harmonica is a little bit limited. I mean, I'm bending notes, I'm doing things like that. I've been playing for so many years now. But it's pretty much all improvisational when you're playing but anyway, that's the part that I really enjoy is improvising over a band playing or a guitar or whatever. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
And continuing in that vein, one of your favorite groups is Wings, and the song Band on the Run.
That was actually the first LP. The first LP, the first record that I ever owned. As a kid. It was Wings, and it had, the Band on the Run. That was it. And so that was the first one. I like all kinds of music. I really do. I mean, I enjoy all kinds of stuff. It just depends on my mood, really. But, yeah, that was the very first one. That was the very first one that I got. And of course, I grew up, these babysitters we had every now and then. They were into the Beatles, and to Led Zeppelin and to Pink Floyd, and they would introduce this stuff to me. And, of course, I picked up on all of that, and I loved the Beatles and, of course, enjoyed Wings, Paul McCartney and Wings and Band on the Run and all that. But that was the very first one I ever owned was that LP. And I think the second one was an Elton John album. I don't remember now which one that was, but anyway, yeah, I like all kinds of stuff. I listen to a lot of rock and roll. I listen to anything, really. I mean, it just depends on the mood.
Yeah, because my flow of music goes from classical to old-time rock and roll to jazz to blues to swing to big band to country to alternative to Scottish Moors, you name it, and I'll listen to it. When you wrote, I want to digress a little bit because I am interested in the love versus hate. I saw that, and when I read that you wrote it like a boxing match, that is so interesting because hate won.
Yeah, because, at that time I was beginning, it's like we were talking about this earlier, I was kind of was beginning to see what the real world was like. I had a girlfriend, and you kind of, I don't know, you begin to kind of see things happening, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. We have a caller. I think they want to ask you a question. Hello, caller.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Yvonne, this is Frank. I got home early from work. You said to give you a call, so I'd call you in.
Yeah, this is my co-host.
I just got home, and I'm making food for the birds, so I thought I would give you a call.
Oh, this is my co-host from last night, Frank Bettinger. He is also an author who writes horror. So I told him to call in.
How you doing, Frank?
Nice to meet you. Yeah, I write my
Likewise.
dark, strange tales.
Yeah,
I almost.
Fun.
They are very fun. I almost missed the show, and I apologize for calling so late, but I just got home and started making the pasta and vegetables for the birds' dinner, and I thought, Yvonne, so you forgot to remind me, so I forgot.
So, when you wrote the story, Love versus Hate, why did hate win? Was it because it was a coming of age and reality slapped you right in the face?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember now exactly, but I remember the sort of feeling behind it. I mean, first of all, it would be, I don't know, I just felt at the time that if love won, it was just that, I don't know, I guess people would expect love to win, and, you know, love wins and love's the greatest thing. And I just thought, well, I don't want love to win, I want hate to win. But there's a point behind that too, is because I had, you know, at that point I was already, you begin to see things, you begin to experience things, and it's that you see people, you see the reality a little bit. You know, you come out of that sheltered, you know, the way you grew up or whatever, and then you begin to see people for what some of them are, you know, I guess. And in that case, and I was also feeling a bit, I think I was feeling a bit down, and it had something to do with a girlfriend too. So I wasn't feeling that great when I wrote that story. That's what kind of inspired me to write this love versus hate boxing match. And the crowd is cheering hate. You know, they want hate to win. You know, and it was just one of those things that I thought, because of the girlfriend and the situation I was going through, that hey, that's the way it is. You know, love gets destroyed here in this case. So it was one of those things.
I like that.
I thought
perfect sense. It makes perfect sense to me. Well, let me ask you this: your little screenplays, Eyes Without, the micro horror Daffod, and Sabrina, and A Little Panic, A Little Tear, and Miss Amelia. Are they in video form? Are they out there so people can see them?
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about those, because the screenplays, I have a couple of screenplays that have been optioned, you know. I mean, and people who are in the film, they know that doesn't mean much, you know, nowadays.
Right.
But they've been optioned, and they're with a couple, with one particular, good production company, but nothing's happened to them, you know, at this point. Every now and then word comes up, somebody might want to do something with it. Anyway, I'm just happy with them being optioned, you know. But what happened with the little films, with the micro horror films that I did, and they were sort of an exploratory, basically for me to get more experience, because I have some experience as an actor, and I wanted to have some experience as a director, primarily because there was interest in Charlotte becoming a film. Now, what happened was, I think it was about 3 years ago, there was a producer-director from California who got in touch with me, who had seen the book and said, I think this would be a good movie. You know, I think this would make a good movie because, and it would also, and it wouldn't be too expensive to do, because even in the book, I'm not using a tremendous amount of locations. There's not a lot of crazy stuff going on. So this guy was really excited in getting this book into a movie, and he asked me if I had a screenplay. And at that point, I did not have a screenplay, and I said, I will write a screenplay on Charlotte, because I wasn't, you know, I'm very critical of my own work, you know, and I don't think that, you know, I don't know. I don't know. Some writers, I don't know. They're not shy about saying, "Oh, this is my masterpiece," you know. But I can't get myself to say that, because I'm very critical about what I do. So it didn't occur to me to think, okay, I'm going to make a movie out of this, you know. But anyway, when this came about from a producer, an independent producer director, I got to work on a screenplay, and we kind of went back and forth, and then that kind of didn't pan out. And then there was somebody else that kind of was involved that decided to take over. And then finally, I mean, this went through so many different steps, you know, and then finally this producer said, why don't you, would you be interested, because he knew my background, and he said, you wrote the screenplay, you did all this, would you be interested in directing it? And I said, I've never directed film, so I sure, I'd be interested in directing, but I don't know much about it. So it was just a conversation. I mean, it would take a while for me to explain all the different details, but anybody who's in the film business understands that this stuff just goes back and forth, and it just takes sometimes forever to get anything done. So what I did is I became proactive, and I thought, okay, I'm going to shoot a Charla trailer because that may help me get – there was already some interest, so I figured if I shoot a Charla trailer, then maybe I could get more people interested. So I did some casting here. I got involved with that. We shot the trailer, and then the guy who shot the trailer never gave me the trailer for whatever reason. I mean, that's another long story in itself. But so I decided to start directing these microfilms because I had somebody who was willing to put the money behind the film, and we had worked on a budget, and we had thought, okay, it's going to cost this much to shoot this film, and we need this and we need that. So just to make a long story short, I decided to make these little films just so I can get a crew together, because here in Florida, in South Florida, there's a tremendous amount of creative people in the film business. It's just the state doesn't really help. You know,
no,
there's
because
not a lot of incentives.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of incentive for film companies to come here and work. It's hard, you know. So, but there's a tremendous amount of talent down here, and I know quite a few actors. I know quite a few people that are making films, and people are doing really, really interesting work. And it's, you know, it's dog eat dog. It's tough, but so I started doing these little films. Now, you know, they're more, you know, basically I wanted to get to know some crew people. I wanted to see who I could work with, and you know, I wanted to get a little team together, and so that we can produce Charla. Now, that is still an ongoing thing, and I mentioned earlier in the interview that in the past, couple of years, I've been a bit of a hermit, so a lot of these projects have been delayed, and it's been my fault because I just haven't been active, you know, with getting but the project is still active, and I did those tiny films. They're on YouTube, so people can go and watch them. It's just they're not very good. I mean, there are moments that are good in those little films. I think the actors, I think, are good. The cinematography and some of the work is good. The audio is good. The original music can be good. But, you know, the films in themselves, I mean, sometimes the script I thought was good, but it's very hard to put a film together. It's, you know, you have something in your mind, but when you actually do it,
it's not the same.
It's just rarely what you imagined it would be. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But it's rarely. And then because you're doing stuff, low budget stuff, it's you know, sometimes you have to compromise and do different things. Like right now, I was working on a film called Rough Go, which is not a horror film. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's a bit of an action film. I had an MMA fighter who was going to choreograph this fight scene. I mean, this whole thing, and I had to get permits. I had to get insurance. I mean, I had to do all this stuff, and then we hit a wall in production. You know, it's going to be a short film, but about 30 minutes long. And I have the trailer. The trailer is up on YouTube as well. It's called Rough Go. And we hit a wall. We hit a wall because I needed an airplane, a private airplane. I needed different things. In other words, film production is very difficult to do when you're on your own and you're trying to do it. And I was paying for everything, and it's very difficult. But anyways, the Charla thing is still ongoing. It's still you know, something that is probably going to happen because I've had. In fact, there's a local production company who showed interest in it as well. I mean, so right now there are about 3 or 4 people out there who can make the film, who can make it happen. Still communicating with me to some degree about getting this thing off the ground. So the Charla film, which would be a feature film, is most likely going to happen. But you know, in the film business, you just never know what's going to happen. But it could be a reality.
Well, we put it out in the universe now, and I am a firm believer in putting things out in the universe. And you're on this show, which we know goes all over the world. You've come out of your hermit states, and you're surrounding yourself with all things positive. So we're going to say this Charla will happen. She is happening.
Yeah. I mean, you know. Hopefully it'll happen, and it's still, you know, I have a few different versions of the screenplay at this point because we've had to do so many changes. Like I was saying earlier, to keep the story short, I didn't go into all the details and all the hurdles and all the other stuff that's gone on since then. But well, hopefully it'll happen, and it's one of those things that you just got to keep positive about, and it would be fun. It would be a lot of fun. I love doing films, It would be a lot of fun.
Let's put where you can be found out there, because we're going to run out of time. Believe it or not, we're down to the wire.
Yeah, I know.
Put where you can be found so these folks can get in contact with you.
Yeah. You can find me on YouTube or alexanderberesford.net. Alexander Beresford, BERESFORD.net. You can go on there. I need to update the news section on there, but you can email me through there.
You're on Facebook. They can contact you on
Facebook.
And
Correct.
if they really want to get creative and they have a brain fart and forget everything you just told them, they can contact you through me on Off the Chain, and I can get the information to you. It's no big deal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, listen, my job is to pay it forward. That's why I am successful, because all of y'all are successful, and that is very important to me. In fact, it's more important to me that y'all become more successful than my success, because it makes me happy when I see my writer friends and my filmmaker friends and my artist friends and my musician friends going, I'm going to do this and I'm doing that and I've got this picked up.
Right.
Because it's beautiful. We're all in this together. So the more positive energy we get out there, the better off we are. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are getting to the close of our show, and tomorrow night I'm supposed to have a gentleman on my show by the name of Vern Minton. Vern is a country and western singer who got burnt by the industry. The only way you can find his music now is on YouTube, and I'm going to bring him on and talk to him about what happened. It should be an interesting show. It's a heartbreaking. His story is so heartbreaking. If I could get my hands around the throat of the man that took him, just like you got taken with your trailer, and we have gotten taken as writers by shady publishers. He got taken in the music industry, which is so sad. So join us tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on Off the Chain. And as I close my show every night, our world is made up of dreamers. And if we didn't have dreamers, we wouldn't have people like Alexander, who creates beautiful music and beautiful stories. And we wouldn't have people like Frank that writes wonderful books. And we wouldn't have cars. We wouldn't go to the moon. We wouldn't have technology, which to me is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So and Alexander, tell me if I'm wrong. If dreamers don't make their dreams real, they cheat themselves. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely fair. Yeah, absolutely. You cheat yourself if you don't go for it.
Yeah, and don't allow anybody to steal your dream, ladies and gentlemen. Even without your permission, don't let them steal your dream, because when they steal your dream, and you cannot allow someone else to own you. And I'm not talking about good manners and opening the door for people. I'm talking about people that figuratively put the heel of their boot on your head and say you can't go anywhere because you're not good enough, because you are good enough.
Right.
Believe in yourself when nobody else will. And you can be an Alexander Beth, a Frank Bittinger. You can be a Cleve Barker. You can be a Clark Gable. You just have to believe. So join me tomorrow night at 8 o'clock when I have Vern Minton on as my guest. Don't be that person at the end of your life that says, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. Alexander, don't hang up after the show goes dark, but I did want to say thank you for taking an hour of your time and spending it with me. And you are coming back, because we didn't even get into the new book, but we'll launch it on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yvonne, for having me. I appreciate that.
Well, I don't know where the hour went. It just flew, as it always does. But, ladies and gentlemen, join us tomorrow night. And, again, don't be that person that shoulda, woulda, coulda. And with that, we say good evening. Okay, now we're off air. Everything that we say now will show up in archives. And what I will do, Alexander, is I will put, when the show archives, I'll put it up on my on my page and tag you in it. And then tomorrow, when I upload all the podcasts, I'll put that link up and tag you too. And I want you to take these shows and I want you to put them everywhere. Put them on your page. Put them everywhere that you network, because that will get you out there more. Isn't that right, Frank?
Yep.
It does. It truly does. Makes a huge difference.
You'll be hearing from people. You're going, where did you hear from me? How did you find out about me? And it'll be the show.
It makes a difference in royalty checks, big time.
Yeah, it does.
I'll do that.
So, again, thank you, my friend. I am so glad you decided to come out of hibernation and join the rest of the artistic world, because we're so much better with you in it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a beautiful message you had at the end of the show there, and I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you, and I look forward to coming back. If you'll have me back,
absolutely.
I'd love to be back.
You're not getting away that easy, my man. You have become a regular on the show. So just know when I say, Alexander, you're on the show on this day, you'll say yes, ma'am.
Yes. Well, you let me know whenever you want me back. Just let me know.
All right, and you think you'll have the book ready by August?
I may have submitted the book by then to Nick, but Nick will need, he'll need some time to put it out, so maybe not. But I could talk about it. I mean,
we'll start promoting it in August. Yeah, let's do that. Let me set you up for August, and we'll start promoting the new book, and that way we'll have the people salivating for the book before it ever gets launched.
Sure, that'd be great. Just let me know. Let me know when. Just get in touch and let me know when, and I'll schedule it and I'll be on. I'd love that.
All right. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Yvonne. I really do appreciate you having me on. That was
You're
great.
welcome, hon.
Thank you.
And Frank, I'm sorry you came in late, but you missed it.
Hey,
so
it's all good.
Nice meeting you, Frank.
It was nice to meet you.
You'll have to come on and help me co-host the next show when Alexander's on there, because he's got some interesting stories.
Sure, anytime. You just let me know, and I'll make sure I'm home from work in time.
All right, guys. I'll talk to y'all later.
All right. Thanks, Yvonne. See you, Frank. Good night, Frank.
Good night.
Good night, guys. Bye-bye.
Napa know-how.
The Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is zero, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
Welcome to Metro PCS.
Hi, I heard you're giving free phones to everybody?
Yes, right now, everybody gets a free phone. You and your friends, cousins, neighbors, roommates.
What if I'm already with Metro PCS?
Yeah, it's for existing customers, new customers, people named Willie, dog lovers.
That's awesome.
Everyone gets a free phone at Metro PCS. Come choose your select free phone from brands like Samsung and LG. Metro PCS. Wireless figured out. Sales tax not included. Phones free after instant and mail-in rebates. Upgrade fee may apply. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.